Most people don't realize this, but the biggest prison you will ever live in is not made of walls, rules, or circumstances. It is built quietly inside your own mind. You wake up every day carrying invisible chains, worries about the future, fear of failure, doubts about your worth, excuses shaped by your past. And the worst part is this: you've lived with these chains for so long that they feel normal. You don't even question them anymore. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. If your life stayed exactly the same for the next 5 years, would you be proud of yourself or deeply disappointed? Because the truth is, your life is not shaped by one big moment. It is shaped by what you repeatedly tolerate, postpone, and avoid. Most people don't fail dramatically. They slowly disappear into comfort, distraction, and waiting. You've been told to plan more, think more, wait more. You've been told that someday things will make sense, that the right time will come, that confidence will arrive first and action will follow. That is a lie. Confidence comes after action. Clarity comes after movement. And the future rewards those who act while others hesitate. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone less talented than you, less intelligent than you, and less prepared than you is winning simply because they decided to move. Not because they were fearless, but because they were tired of staying the same. They didn't eliminate uncertainty. They stepped into it. They didn't wait for motivation. They created discipline. And slowly, quietly, their life began to change. Your mind is powerful, but it can also be your greatest enemy. It will remind you of your past mistakes. It will exaggerate risks. It will convince you that comfort is safety and delay is wisdom. But listen carefully. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you trade a piece of your future for temporary relief. And every time you delay action, you reinforce the belief that you are not capable. This video is not here to motivate you for 5 minutes. It is here to confront you, to challenge the stories you tell yourself, to expose the patterns that keep you stuck. Because transformation does not begin with hype. It begins with awareness. When you finally see how your mind works against you, you stop being controlled by it. You don't need a new life. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need permission. What you need is the courage to act today, despite fear, despite uncertainty, despite doubt. Because the future you are worried about is being built right now by what you do next. Stay with me until the end of this video. Not because this will be easy to hear, but because what you're about to understand may be the turning point you didn't know you were waiting for. The future is shaped by what you do today, not by what you overthink. This sounds simple, almost obvious, yet it is one of the hardest truths for human beings to live by. Most people believe their future will magically improve with time, with luck, or with one big opportunity. In reality, the future is nothing more than a long shadow cast by today's actions. If today is empty, tomorrow will be weak. If today is disciplined, tomorrow becomes powerful. Overthinking creates the illusion of preparation, but action is the only real preparation that exists. Human beings are naturally afraid of uncertainty. The future is unknown, and the unknown feels dangerous. So the mind tries to protect itself by thinking more, planning more, imagining every possible outcome. People tell themselves they are being careful, strategic, or smart. But most of the time, this overthinking is just fear wearing the mask of intelligence. It feels productive, but it produces nothing. Hours pass, days pass, years pass, and nothing changes except repeat. The mind stays busy, but life stays the same. Overthinking disconnects you from the present moment. Instead of asking, what can I do right now? You ask, what if this goes wrong? Well, instead of moving one step forward, you freeze, waiting for perfect clarity. But clarity does not come before action. Clarity comes from action. You understand life by living it, not by imagining it. Every successful person learned by doing things imperfectly, failing publicly, and correcting along the way. They didn't wait for certainty. They created it through movement. When you focus on what you can do today, something powerful happens. Your world becomes smaller, clearer, and more controllable. You stop trying to solve your entire life at once. You stop carrying the weight of 10 years on your shoulders. Instead, you focus on the next task, the next decision. This shift alone can transform anxiety into energy. The present moment is the only place where effort works. You cannot work in the past, and you cannot work in the future. You can only work now. Many people believe their future depends on big decisions, which career to choose, which city to move to, which opportunity to take. But the truth is far less dramatic. The future is built by small, boring, repeated actions. Reading a few pages every day. Practicing a skill even when no one is watching. Showing up when you feel tired. Saying no to distractions that give comfort but steal growth. These actions seem insignificant in the moment, but over time they quietly shape your destiny. Overthinking often comes from comparing yourself to others. You see someone successful and start worrying about how far behind you are. You imagine their future and panic about yours. But comparison steals focus from the only timeline that matters, your own. Everyone starts at a different point. Everyone has different obstacles. When you waste energy thinking about where others are going, you lose energy needed to move forward yourself. The future is personal. It is not a competition, it is a construction project. And you are both the architect and the worker. Another reason people overthink is the fear of making the wrong choice. They believe one mistake will ruin everything. This belief paralyzes them, but life is not fragile. One wrong step rarely destroys a future. Inaction does far more damage. Even a wrong decision teaches you something valuable. It gives you experience, direction, and resilience. Most people who succeed do not succeed because they always made the right choices, but because they made many choices and learn it quickly from the wrong ones. When you act today, even imperfectly, you gain momentum. Momentum changes how you think, how you feel, and how others see you. Confidence does not come from thinking positively about the future. It comes from keeping promises to yourself today. Every small action completed is proof that you are capable. Over time, this proof builds self-trust, and self-trust is one of the strongest foundations a future can stand. It is also important to understand that worrying about the future often hides a deeper issue, a lack of responsibility for the present. Worry allows you to feel busy without being accountable. Action forces responsibility. When you act, results follow, and results demand ownership. That can be uncomfortable, but growth is always uncomfortable before it becomes familiar. The people who transform their lives accept this discomfort early instead of avoiding it forever. The future does not suddenly arrive one day and ask who deserves success. It quietly grows from daily habits, attitudes, and decisions. If you neglect today, the future becomes a reflection of that neglect. If you respect today, the future slowly begins to respect you back. This is not philosophy, it is reality. Life rewards consistency far more than intelligence and courage far more than talent. When you stop worrying excessively about the future, you don't become careless, you become grounded. You stop living in imagined problems and start solving real ones. You understand that while you cannot control outcomes, you can always control effort. And effort, applied consistently, has a way of opening doors that fear never could. So the question is not what your life will look like in 5 years. The real question is what you are doing today that your future self will either thank you for or regret deeply. Every day you are voting for the life you will live tomorrow. You don't need to see the entire path. You only need the courage to take the next step. When you commit to today, the future takes care of itself. Not because it is guaranteed, but because you are finally doing the only thing that ever had the power to shape it. Fear of failure wastes more lives than failure itself. This idea sounds uncomfortable because most people are taught from a very young age that failure is something to avoid at all costs. Society rewards success publicly but punishes failure quietly, often with shame, judgment, and silence. Because of this, people grow up believing that failing means they are not good enough, not smart enough, or not worthy enough. Over time, this belief becomes so strong that they stop trying altogether. And that is where real loss begins. Failure, in its simplest form, is just an outcome that didn't match expectations. It is an event, not an identity. Fear of failure, however, is a mindset that slowly controls decisions, behavior, and self-belief. When people fear failure, they choose safety over growth. They choose comfort over challenge. They choose familiar pain over unfamiliar opportunity. This fear doesn't usually show up as panic. It shows up as hesitation, delay, and endless preparation. People tell themselves they are not ready yet, when in reality, they are just afraid to look foolish or be judged. What makes fear of failure so dangerous is that it convinces people they are protecting themselves when they are actually limiting themselves. They believe that by not trying, they are avoiding pain. But the pain doesn't disappear. It just changes form. Instead of the short-term pain of failing and learning, they experience the long-term pain of regret. Years later, they look back and wonder what could have happened if they had just taken the risk. That regret is often heavier than any failure they tried to avoid. Failure, on the other hand, is surprisingly honest. It gives clear feedback. It shows you what works and what doesn't. It forces you to adapt, improve, and grow. Many of the skills that matter most in life, resilience, problem-solving, emotional strength, are not developed through success alone. They are developed through struggle. Without failure, people remain fragile. The first challenge breaks them because they never learned how to recover. Fear of failure also distorts how people see successful individuals. From the outside, success looks smooth and inevitable. What is invisible are the countless failed attempts, rejections, wrong decisions, and embarrassing moments that came before. People compare their behind-the-scenes struggles to someone else's highlight reel and conclude they are not capable. This comparison fuels fear and keeps them stuck. They forget that every strong person was once inexperienced, uncertain, and scared. Another powerful way fear of failure lives is by shrinking ambition. When people are afraid to fail, they stop aiming high. They set small, safe goals that don't excite them, just so they can avoid disappointment. And over time, this lowers their self-respect. Deep inside, they know they are capable of more, but fear keeps them from reaching for it. Living below your potential slowly drains motivation and self-belief. You may appear stable on the outside, but inside there is frustration and dissatisfaction. Fear of failure is often rooted in the fear of judgment. People worry about what others will think if they fail. They imagine being laughed at, criticized, or labeled as a failure. But what they don't realize is that most people are too busy worrying about their own lives to focus on someone else's mistakes for long. Judgment is usually temporary, but the impact of not trying can last a lifetime. Those who achieve something meaningful are rarely the ones who avoided embarrassment. They are the ones who accepted it as part of the journey. Failure also helps clarify purpose. When you fail at something, you learn whether you truly care enough to continue. If you quit after the first setback, it may not have mattered to you as much as you thought. But if you persist despite failure, that persistence reveals commitment. Fear of failure robs people of this clarity. They never discover what they are capable of because they never test themselves. It is important to understand that failure does not ruin lives. Avoidance does. A failed business can be rebuilt. A failed exam can be retaken, be improved. But a life spent avoiding risk becomes smaller with time. Opportunities pass by because fear keeps you frozen. Confidence erodes because you never prove to yourself that you can handle difficulty. Slowly, fear becomes a habit, and habits shape destiny. When people finally confront their fear of failure, something shifts. They realize that failure is not the end of the road, but part of the road. They stop asking, what if I fail? And start asking, what will I learn? This change in perspective turns fear into curiosity. Instead of seeing challenges as threats, they begin to see them as tests that strengthen them. With every attempt, successful or not, they gain experience that cannot be taken away. A life lived without failure is usually a life lived without boldness. And a life without boldness rarely feels meaningful. Meaning comes from stretching yourself, from trying things that matter, from risking disappointment for the chance of growth. Fear of failure steals this meaning. It keeps people busy surviving instead of truly living. In the end, failure may hurt your pride, but fear of failure quietly destroys your future. Failure may slow you down, but fear stops you completely. Those who accept failure as a teacher move forward wiser and stronger. Those who let fear control them remain stuck, watching others build the lives they were too afraid to attempt. Small actions taken daily beat perfect plans delayed forever. This idea goes against how most people think about change. People love big plans. They love dramatic turning points, perfect routines, and ideal moments to start. They believe that if everything is planned properly, success will be guaranteed. But life does not reward perfect planning. It rewards consistent movement. While people wait for the perfect time, others move forward imperfectly and quietly pass them by. Perfection is attractive because it feels safe. A perfect plan gives the illusion of control. It makes people feel intelligent and prepared. But perfection is also a form of delay. When you wait for everything to be right, you are usually waiting forever. Conditions are never ideal. Energy is never constant. Confidence does not arrive magically. The people who transform their lives understand this truth early. You do not need a perfect plan to begin. You need the courage to take the first small step. Small actions may look insignificant, but they carry enormous power when repeated. 1 hour of focused work each day may not look impressive, but over a year compounds into thousands of hours of progress. 1 page read daily may feel slow, but it turns into books of knowledge over time. 1 small improvement every day can change your entire direction. Growth is rarely explosive. It is usually quiet, gradual, and invisible in the beginning. Perfect plans fail because they rely on motivation. Motivation is unreliable. It rises and falls based on mood, environment, and circumstance. Small daily actions rely on discipline, and discipline is far more stable. Discipline does not require you to feel inspired. It only requires you to show up. When you build a habit of showing up, even on bad days, progress continues whether you feel like it or not. Another danger of perfect plans is that they overwhelm you. When you design a massive, complex plan, your brain sees it as heavy and exhausting. This triggers resistance. You procrastinate not because you are lazy, but because the task feels too big. Small actions remove this resistance. They feel manageable. You don't need courage to take a small step. You only need honesty. And once you take that small step, momentum begins to fall. Momentum is one of the most underestimated forces in life. Action creates momentum, and momentum creates motivation, not the other way around. When you do something small today, you feel slightly better about yourself. That feeling makes it easier to act again tomorrow. Over time, this cycle builds confidence. Confidence does not come from thinking about what you will do. It comes from seeing evidence of what you have already done. Delayed plans often fail because life changes. A plan that looks perfect today may become irrelevant tomorrow. Waiting too long means missing opportunities that only existed for a short time. Small actions keep you flexible. They allow you to adjust as you go. Instead of being attached to one rigid plan, you respond to reality. You learn, adapt, and improve in real time. There is also a hidden psychological benefit to daily action. Every time you complete a small task, you send a message to your brain that you are reliable. You start trusting yourself. Many people struggle not because they lack ability, but because they lack self-trust. They have broken too many promises to themselves. Small daily actions rebuild that trust slowly but powerfully. When you trust yourself, you stop needing external motivation. Perfect plans delayed forever often die quietly. No one sees them fail because they were never tested. They exist only in notebooks, notes apps, and imagination. Small actions, even when they fail, provide feedback. Feedback is more valuable than imagination. It shows you what works and what doesn't. Without feedback, improvement is impossible. Action, not planning, creates feedback. People often say they will start when they feel ready. But readiness is not a feeling. It is a result of action. You feel ready after you begin, not before. Waiting to feel ready is like waiting to feel strong before going to the gym. Strength comes from the process, not from thinking about it. Small actions are the entrance fee to readiness. Daily effort also builds resilience. When you act consistently, setbacks hurt less because you know you can continue. Missing one day does not destroy everything because the habit is already formed. Perfect plans collapse under pressure because they require ideal conditions. Small actions survive chaos. They fit into real life with its stress, fatigue, and uncertainty. Over time, people who rely on small daily actions develop a quiet confidence. They don't talk much about their plans because they are busy executing. Their progress surprises others because it seems sudden, but it was actually built slowly over months and years. This is how real transformation happens. It is not dramatic, it is discipline. In the end, life does not reward execution. It rewards execution. A small action taken today is worth more than a perfect plan that never leaves your mind. Every day you wait, you pay a hidden cost in lost time and lost belief. Every day you act, even a little, you invest in a future that is already being built. You don't need to change your entire life today. You only need to do one small thing that moves you forward. Do it again tomorrow, then again the next day. What separated them was not a perfect start, but an unbreakable response. They refused to let circumstances define their self-worth. They decided that their future would be created, not inherited. This decision, made repeatedly, changed the direction of their lives. Response also shapes character. When you take responsibility for your reaction to hardship, you become stronger emotionally. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of life and start seeing yourself as a participant in it. This shift changes how you walk, speak, and think. Confidence grows not from success alone, but from knowing you can handle adversity without collapsing. It is important to be honest. Background can slow progress. It can make the path harder and longer. But a slow path is not a dead end. Many people quit simply because progress does not come quickly. Those who succeed understand that time will pass whether they act or not. They choose to act even if the results take years. Patience becomes part of their response. Your response also influences the people around you. When you take responsibility, you inspire others without saying a word. You become proof that circumstances do not have absolute power. This influence often creates opportunities that did not exist before. People are drawn to those who demonstrate discipline and resilience because these traits are rare and valuable. In the end, destiny is not something you discover. It is something you build. Background may determine where you start, but it does not determine where you finish. Every day, through your responses, you're either reinforcing old limitations or better. Life does not ask where you came from before it rewards effort. It only asks how you respond when things are difficult. You cannot change your past, but you can decide what it will mean. It can become an excuse or it can become fuel. That choice made daily is far more powerful than any background you were born into. Uncertainty is not your enemy. Inaction is. Most people believe uncertainty is the main reason they feel stuck in life. They say they don't know what will happen. They don't know if it will work. They don't know if they are making the right choice. So they wait. They pause their dreams, delay decisions, and stay where they are until life feels more predictable. But life never becomes predictable. Uncertainty is not a phase you pass through. It is the permanent condition of being alive. The problem is not uncertainty itself. The real problem is how people respond to it. When uncertainty appears, many people freeze. They stop taking risks. They stop trying new things. They convince themselves that waiting is the smart move. In reality, waiting often becomes a habit, and habits shape lives. Inaction slowly turns uncertainty into regret. Uncertainty has always existed. Every generation faced it in different forms. Yet progress has always been made by people who acted despite not knowing the outcome. No major change in history was made with complete certainty. Every invention, every business, every personal transformation began with someone stepping forward without guarantees. If certainty were required, nothing meaningful would ever begin. Inaction feels safe because it avoids immediate pain. There is no failure if you don't try. There is no rejection if you don't speak. There is no loss if you don't invest effort. But this safety is an illusion. Inaction has a hidden cost that is far greater than the cost of failure. That cost is stagnation. When you do nothing, you stay exactly where you are, while time moves forward without you. And time does not pause for hesitation. Uncertainty actually carries on. It is the space where change is possible. If everything was certain, nothing could improve. Growth requires stepping into the unknown. Learning requires experimentation. Progress requires risk. When you avoid uncertainty, you also avoid growth. What you call safety slowly becomes a cave. Many people say they are waiting for clarity. They believe that one day they will wake up and suddenly know exactly what to do. But clarity does not come from thinking. It comes from engagement. You learn by doing. You discover direction by moving. Action creates information. Inaction creates nothing. The path reveals itself only when you start walking. Uncertainty also builds strength. When you face it repeatedly, you become more adaptable. You stop needing perfect conditions to function. You learn to adjust, improvise, and recover. These skills are far more valuable than certainty, because certainty can disappear overnight. Jobs change, plans fail, circumstances shift. Those who depend on certainty collapse when it is taken away. Those who can act within uncertainty remain steady. Inaction often disguises itself as planning. People spend years preparing without ever starting. They research endlessly, revise plans repeatedly, and wait for their right moment. This gives them the comfort of feeling busy without the discomfort of risk. But preparation without execution is just fear in a productive-looking form. At some point, planning must turn into action, or it becomes another way to avoid uncertainty. There is also an emotional cost to inaction. When you consistently avoid acting, your confidence erodes. You begin to doubt yourself, not because you failed, but because you never tried. Self-respect comes from keeping promises to yourself. Each time you choose inaction, you break a promise. Over time, this damages your relationship with yourself far more than any external failure could. Uncertainty does not ask you to be fearless. It asks you to be brave. Fearlessness is unrealistic. Everyone feels fear when outcomes are unknown. Bravery is acting while fear is present. It is choosing progress over comfort. It is understanding that courage is not the absence of doubt, but the decision to move anyway. When you act, even if the result is not what you hoped for, you gain something valuable. Experience. Experience reduces fear. It sharpens judgment. It makes future decisions easier. Inaction gives you nothing to build on. That is why people who avoid uncertainty often feel more anxious over time, not less. The unknown grows larger in their minds because they never confront it. Life rewards engagement. Opportunities often appear after movement, not before. People notice those who act. Skills develop through use, not intention. Confidence through exposure, not isolation. When you stay inactive, you cut yourself off from these possibilities. The world does not meet you halfway if you refuse to step forward. Uncertainty also keeps you humble and curious. It reminds you that you are still learning. This mindset prevents stagnation. Those who accept uncertainty stay open to new ideas, new paths, and new versions of themselves. Those who fear it cling to what is familiar, even when it no longer serves them. Inaction is dangerous because it feels harmless. It doesn't create visible damage in the short term, but over years, it quietly shapes a life of what-ifs. People rarely regret the things they tried and failed at as much as the things they never attempted. The pain of failure fades, the pain of regret lingers. In the end, uncertainty is not trying to stop you. It is inviting you to grow. It is the test that separates those who wait from those who build. You do not need certainty to take the next step. You only need the willingness to act without it. Life will never promise you perfect outcomes, but it will always respond to effort. When you choose action over hesitation, you turn uncertainty from a threat into a teacher, and that choice repeated daily is what moves a life forward. If there is one truth you should carry with you after this moment, it is this: your life will not change because you understood something. It will change only when you decide to act. Awareness opens the door. Action is what walks you through it. Everything you've heard until now means nothing if it stays in your mind and never reaches your behavior. Knowledge without execution is just another form of comfort. right now you stand at a quiet crossroads. Not a dramatic one, not a loud one, but a real one. You can close this video and return to the same patterns, the same delays, the same excuses that feel familiar. Or you can make a small decision today that your future self will remember. Notice I said small. Because transformation does not demand perfection. It demands consistency. You don't need to defeat fear to move forward. You need to move forward despite fear. Fear never disappears before action. It fades after repeated exposure. Each step you take rewires your mind. Each promise you keep to yourself rebuilds self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of confidence, discipline, and momentum. Understand this clearly. No one is coming to save you, and that is not depressing. It is powerful, because it means the pen is already in your hand. Your past does not own you. Your background does not define you. Your doubts do not control you unless you allow them to. The only thing standing between the life you imagine and the life you live is the decision you make after this moment. Stop waiting for clarity. Stop waiting for motivation. Stop waiting for the perfect time. The perfect time is a myth created by fear. The only real time you have is now, and now is more than enough to begin. One disciplined hour, one honest effort, one uncomfortable action starts. When this video ends, do not let the emotion fade into nothing. Emotion is energy, and energy must be directed or it dies. Use it. Write down one thing you've been avoiding. One habit you know is holding you back. One action you can take today, no matter how small, and do it before the day ends. Not tomorrow, today. Remember this. Years from now, you will look back at this phase of your life as either the moment you stayed the same or the moment you chose differently. The future you are worried about is not ahead of you. It is watching you right now, shaped by what you do next. So don't just listen, decide, move, act, because the greatest tragedy is not failing, it is never trying.